Welcome back to Hot Rod Guy Garage, and this can be another episode on the 65 Mustang. So follow me along through the intro, and I'll be back. So, our next video just went live. So, here I am, the next day. Everything looks like it did yesterday when I left. So today I'm going to go in there and I'm going to fix these places on these straps that I'm not real happy about. We're going to dig a little deeper and go ahead and add the side straps to it and see where we can go from there. But it's a lot of work to go back in here and fix these places. A lot of taping, a lot of addressing issues, but it's got to be done in order to proceed forward. Unfortunately, when you use cheap products, this is sometimes what you get. You get cheap results. I've had expensive products fail too, or had issues with them, but not near on the level that I've had with this paint system. The results that I'm seeing are totally, unforgivable really. And it will be the last time I ever spray this line of paint. It was the first time, and it will be absolutely the last time. But I mean, I sprayed some pretty crappy stuff, guys, and never had issues like this. But at the price point, stay away from this. So let's get into fixing this stuff and we'll go from there. And alright guys, Daisy's down here on the floor. She's all excited because she just got her cat treats and her extra pets. And she says you should really check out her shirts down in her shop below. It'll be down there right below the description. But she's super happy and thinks she needs her claw sharpened. I do think her minor crazed areas here, when you look dead on it, you can't see it. And they are very minor, but in the reflection, you can see they're definitely there. I do believe that will disappear under a clear coat. But we gotta go in there and fix these spots where the tape pulled the paint off. There's a spot on the trunk and there's a spot up here on the cowl. I'm gonna go ahead and pull that down. So what that means is I'm gonna have to go in here. I'm gonna have to resand that area on this cowl. I'm gonna have to resand it in here, retape it off, and then go back in here and just paint these small sections. As far as the trunk goes, it's gonna be the same way. Got a little spot right there. I'll just have to go in there, sand this down, go in there and tape that off and dust these areas in. Well, not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. It does kind of halt progress. Stuff like this happens, but there's just too many coincidences with this paint system and the way it's acting on stuff that I'm just not real happy. But what I didn't show you before was this whole door jamb was crazed up and cracked up to the point where I had to go in here and strip all the paint off of it and the primer, go back in here and reprime this whole door jamb, and I blended the paint back in. You can't really tell I had to go back in there and fix it, but it did produce an acceptable result the second time around. Over another jamb, I had the same thing go on. Get the door opener here. I'll walk around here. I'll show it to you too, since I thought it was just a coincidence that it done it. Also done the same thing over here. Went back in there and kind of blended it in. Had a spot over here. I went back in there and blended it in. So at least the second time I fixed it, it turned out good. So let's go in there and get these straps fixed. All right, got the trunk jam repaired. Remember paint issues on the hood? We got more than trunk jam. It's definitely not a contamination issue, especially back there. So the good thing is you're not going to see that. It's minor compared to the hood, but still there nonetheless. So let me flip around and I'll show it to you. I went in there, like you see in the video, I went in there, I back taped this, I sanded it, all that good stuff. And if you get down in here, you can see in the jam right there, we got more of our reaction there. The only good thing is it didn't react with the other base coat we sprayed last night, so that will be fine there. So now to move over to the under hood stuff. So I'm gonna get this cowl sanded a little further down and get this taped up. You can see that right there in the light real good. But I'm gonna get this sanded down, taped up, go in here and blow these places in. And just to test, remember when I showed the spray gun, there's clear coat here, there's raw base coat up here, and there's clear here, raw base coat here. So I'm gonna wipe this down with a little isopropyl alcohol. We should be neutral to do something like this. And I'll spray some of that base coat on here, and we'll see what it does. Well, it's a little while later. I got the cowl fixed. So I sprayed some places on that panel out here to see how it would react. And then I took whatever leftover paint I had and dumped it on it too, just to see what happened. Yeah. As you can see, 90% of it's all right. The other percentage of it, we got reactions. You can see it's, it's dry to the touch, but got some severe reactions like what I had in the door jamb, where it's actually blistered up and bad. And over here we got some of that crazing like I had on the hood. So over here where I just sprayed over the old junky enamel, ain't got no problems. And where it's straight over the base, so their base reacts with their clear coat in their system. I know, unscientific, right? Well, I think that proves that it's an issue with their clear and their base coat are not compatible with each other. So that's good news for me, because at this point I'm almost scared to spray clear on it again. But it's just one of them things that happens, and I think at this point I'm gonna flip around and I'll show you the cowl. It actually did not react at all on the cowl area. Like I said before, it's just been totally random and weird places. I don't think I could prepped it any better to avoid these issues, but I may be wrong, but I'm not gonna say that I'm right. So let's flip around and look at the cowl. So, like I said, the cowl repaired itself beautifully. And I just went ahead and run it all the way down to the rubber line. Get a rubber that covers that, so I wasn't real worried about it being super even across. Because once that rubber's on there, it goes up against that and goes almost up to the base of the cowl. I just wanted to pull it down enough to make sure we didn't have no issues again. So I really want to go ahead and start taping off these straps, but I'm scared to, almost. So I think next I'm going to take a little 800 and some water and just tip this and see how it's going to kind of lay down, because if not, I'm going to have to go in here and kind of blend this in. So I'm not going to fast forward this part, but I had planned on kind of scuffing this down anyway to reduce our paint line. And just like I thought was going to happen, we're going to have some, you can see our base color coming up. So I'm going to sand this down right here and then get it good and smooth again. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to just dust some red back in this area. All right. So if you noticed in the little fast forward section, I took masking tape and rolled it back up on itself. What that does is create a soft line. It don't make a hard line. So what will happen by doing that, it will allow me, when I go in here and scuff this with Scotch-Brite pad before I re-clear it, it will allow where I blend this paint in to completely disappear. While you can still see some of the craze where I sanded it, it is greatly reduced. So our likelihood of seeing it through clear coat has also been greatly reduced. I also hit the spots up here in the front of the hood. So I'll flip around and show it to you. It's not going to look great right now, but it's going to have to cure out. Then I'm going there with Scotch-Brite before we clear coat this car. I will scuff these stripes down a little bit and it will blend on in at that point. So the front up here, you probably can't see it on camera, but if I get it in the reflection, you can see where I went here and dusted some red in, where the white popped back up. Back here in the back, you can see it because of our soft line. I taped it up. And what that soft line is just overspray right there. Like I said, when I go in there with Scotch-Brite, it should take it away. But the thing is, we don't have white sticking through anymore. And this light pinkish spot or dull spot right here, when I scuff this down, will disappear. So all those issues are fixed. So now we can move on to our side stripes. So good way to waste half the day going back in here and fixing these issues. But now I feel pretty decent about it. I feel like once it clears on it, it'll all disappear. So that's what's important. When your end result don't show where you had to go back in here and fix things. So let's get to mocking these stripes up and figuring out how we're going to tape them up, and then we'll go from there. All right, guys. This is the best layout I can figure out for the factory stripes. 65, 4 1/8 overall. 66 is 3 3/8. So I want to mock both these up on the car, but I had some stencils made right here because the factory Shelby stripes, GT350 here is vinyl. The rest of it's paint, and the letters are vinyl themselves. So kind of a throwback to our old stick-on letters, and since it's not a real Shelby, I don't want to represent it as one. I had these stencils made, and these are 2 1/8 inches tall, just like the 65 stripe right here. So these will go right here at the base of your fenders. So let's start measuring out for our stripes, and we can go from there. All right, I didn't video me taping the passenger side stripe, but I'll bring it along for a ride on the driver's side. I wanted to kind of get an idea of what I was getting into, and I did have to adjust the stripe placement just a touch. And I'll drop a screenshot of why up somewhere over here, and this is red paint, not blood on my hands. I'll drop a screenshot here of what I wasn't happy with, and I'll explain it when I flip it over. This is probably why they revised the stripe for 66. But factory, the stripe goes over the door jamb. The door to the door jamb, and the lower stripe continues on the rocker. Half inch below where the rocker starts. So I went in here and I laid it out. I raised the stripe up about 1/4 inch. It will still look correct. It'll still be in the right place, but just a little edited. That way with our larger 65 lettering, it will still look normal. So I'll flip it around now. So guys, we are still 4 1/8 inch overall. We have our 1/2 inch pinstripe. You have to look between the orange here to understand what's going on. So get our 1/2 inch pinstripe all the way down. Get our 1/2 inch pinstripe all the way down. We're 13 1/8 with a 1/2 inch gap at the back of the fender, 13 1/8, and this will be our front part of the stripe, which is 2 1/8 inches tall. We are 2 1/8 inches tall all the way back for the total of 4 1/8, like it's supposed to be. Like I said, I raised this stripe up. Well, yeah, I raised the stripe up so that the bottom of our door is our natural break point for the red. And that way we don't have to paint into the door jamb with the red. And our body seam sealer joint at our quarter panel will be our natural line for the top of our 1/2 inch stripe. So it should turn out pretty decent. It's hard to kind of gauge it right now because it don't look like anything it's supposed to look like. But you just kind of have to read between the lines on this one. And at this point, I can totally understand why they make vinyl stripe kits for this. It is not easy to lay out. It is not easy to tape up. That make it look right. But in an effort to try to make all the red match on the car this time, instead of having 10 different shades of, red, this was the only way that I could come to the conclusion to make it the way that I would personally be happy with it. So at this point, I'm ready to start taping the car up. And I'm going to spray this with my trim gun, so I'm not going to tape it as much as I did yesterday for the other stripes. I will pretty much bag one side at a time. But let me get this passenger side stripe on here. We'll untape it, we'll see what it looks like, and see if we screwed up. We're all taped up. So as you can see, I only bagged about half the car. But I'm going to use my small gun on low pressure, so it should be more than enough for this job. First tack coat down. So the only good thing about trim gun guys, it puts off hardly any overspray at low pressure. But it's great for doing stuff like these small stripes. So I'm gonna let this flash about 15 minutes or until it feels like it's dry, and then I will come back in here and blow a second coat on it and maybe a third. After that third one dries, we will untape this, put our stencil on, and spray our letters. So if there's anything I've done through this whole process is make sure that either like my clear is good and stringy before I second coat it, or my base is flashed all the way. So the only good thing with trim gun is, but a lot less material on it. So all we're doing is trying to get the red to cover, and then we're done. Just like the stripes on the car, I'll try to get them just to cover. Same with these, just enough to cover. Alright guys, get it done taped on the passenger side. I still got to tape the driver's side, lay the stripe out. This was kind of to see how everything would lay out and look on the car. Pretty happy with it. I'll flip around and show it to you. And you let me know down in the comments below what you think. So, the red really lightened up the white. It looks more white than it did beige. So, got the stripe laid out. Got her stencil sprayed. There's a couple little spots I'm going to have to sand out around it. I thought the GT289 would be kind of a funny throwback to our old stick-on letters. So, I got the strap on there. I kind of step back here. May actually be able to pull it off. So now the hard part is going to be matching the driver's side to the passenger side. But we're laid out just like the Shelby dimensions. Like I said, I just edged them and brought them up a little bit closer to the door body line. That way the center stripe didn't run down into the rocker panel. I think it done pretty well doing it that way. And the shadow in the rocker panel completes our line. So I think this car's actually going to turn out nicer than it ever should have. I'll know once I get the clear on it, but didn't have no reactions in the stripe on the side. In fact, I didn't even wipe it down this time. I just kind of dusted it off with an old dirty towel. So it laid out good, didn't react. Everything seems okay there. On a side note, this little blue plastic tape, done been through 2 rolls of this stuff. It's pretty neat though. Static clean stuff, which is usually a bad thing when it comes to paint, but for spraying stuff like these stripes, it's great. You just stick it to the car and, you know, tape around the edges as you need, and it does a pretty good job of masking everything off. So let's start laying the other side out. Like I said, I'll bring you along for that ride on it. The stripes are something that are kind of extremely hard to lay out. So let's get to doing it. Alright guys, basically what I've done, I took some 3/4 inch fine line tape, which is not fine line tape when it's 3/4 inch wide, but it is a vinyl tape. And what I had done, I'd come in here and I had just roughly stuck it a couple places where I could eyeball where I thought it looked the best. And keep in mind, we got to fit a 4 5/8 overall stripe in this area, using the door jamb as our gap. So what I had done is I had literally brought this stripe up to where there was about an 1/8 inch gap. This will be the top of our upper 1/2 inch stripe. I brought it to where there's about an 1/8 inch gap between the top of the body line and where we need to be. While not 100% correct, it's just the way I done it. Try to bring the stripe upward a little bit. Where we had a good gap here for our bottom stripe gap. So this is how I start. I'm going to start with this stripe. It's going to be our upper stripe edge. I'm going to get it laid out roughly. I'm going here and lay out our lower stripe edge, which is going to end up being about a 1/2 inch below the rocker panel lip here. It's going to be somewhere down this area. And then I'll take my tape measure and I'll measure in a few spots all the way down the car. just to make sure I have a uniform gap between those two straps. So what you're shooting for between these two margins is 4 1/8. So we're about 4 1/8 there. 4 1/8 there. Four and an eighth there. About 4 1/8 back here. So that gives us our outer edges of our stripes. So at this point, you want to make sure everything's straight. I know this looks like it's turned on the camera, but it's actually not when you get out here inside of it. When you get to your wheel well edge, you're going to have to pull that tape downward to make the line straight across. And all right, our second dimension. Since this is going to be a top of our top pin stripe, so to say, is a 1/2 inch wide. So you need to bring, what would have been helpful to this was if I would have got some 1/2 inch fine line tape, but I'm going to take and I'm just going to stick this, what I roughly think is a 1/2 inch. Now, fine line tape is about like my pin stripe, so it's very easy to kind of pull and remove. So I'm going to come in here with a measuring tape in a few places and just verify where I'm at and if I need to make any changes to our overall height. We're pretty darn close right there. Close counts and horseshoes and hand grenades. So, see if we can get it pulled all the way back here. And the thing is, anytime you screw up, you can always pull it right back off. So, just want to verify your measurements as you go. A little bit off isn't going to hurt anything, but it sure will affect your end product. And you always want to take a sharp razor knife, and where you have door or fender gaps, split it right there in the middle and roll it over to the back side. And you can also use a razor blade to push it all the way around the edge, and that'll give you a nice clean edge as you go. Since this is 1/4 inch tape, I will have to run 2 consecutive right on each other. So, the second one is always easier than the first one. We're not trying to overlap it, but I'm just taking and literally button them up as tight as I can together. That way we don't have no paint bleed through. We're going to follow that all the way up. I said, buying the correct width tape would have saved a whole bunch of hassle and made this just a touch easier. But you can also do it this way if you have to. There's a whole lot more uses for 1/4 inch fine line tape than there is 1/2 inch, but 1/2 inch would have made this stripe a whole lot easier to lay out. All right, our next stripe is going to be another 1/2 inch stripe that goes in here on the bottom. Get a leg cramp. Yeah, go down. That's the way it goes, right there. All right, after a violent leg cramp, what I was trying to explain is, your first 1/4 inch strip is going to go down this seam. It's going along the edge of your door jamb. I come in here and layer our second 1/4 inch over the top, our second 1/4 inch over the top over there, and our door gap acts like our second piece there, and that's what makes that stripe look right. So at this point, our stripe is laid out. So now we need to tape it out for our stencils. So you're going to have a 1/2 inch at the back of the fender and 13 1/8 inches up from that 1/2 inch gap. You're going to have another straight line straight down, another 1/2 inch space, and then the stripe finishes off at the front. So the one part I really need to video was the part that got screwed up, because every time I got down on my knees, my leg cramped and I was flopping on the floor like a fish. When I decided not to video it, not to talk on the video, it went pretty well. But that's the basics of getting the stripe laid out. Like I said, you're going to have a 1/2 inch at the back of the fender that's supposed to be white. You're going to have a 1/2 inch, 13 1/8 inches forward for our stencil. Stops 13 1/8 inches forward. There's going to be another straight line straight down. It's a 1/2 inch wide. And that will give us our small red piece at the front of the fender, the areas for the nameplate, and then continue in the rest of the stripe. Basically, that's exactly how I taped this side up, and that's the results of taping it up that way. If you look at pictures of factory GT350 cars, that looks pretty darn correct to me. That said, it's super late in the day, so I will come in the morning and we'll finish the stripe up. So I'm going to go ahead and get the 1/2 inch gap set up. That way I'm ready for the stencil. Go ahead and lay the tape in there. That way all I got to do in the morning is come in here, tape the car up. We can spray our stripe, let it tack real good, put our stencil on, and then go forward from there. Alright, it's the next day. I got in here this morning, got the car taped up. Let's get the stripe painted. Another thing to note, anytime that you lay tape and you leave for the day, you come back, make sure you re-burnish all those edges with your fingertip. Just to make sure that tape hasn't lifted or pulled up or had any other kind of issues. And I've had a couple people ask about the blue masking tape plastic material. It's this right here. It's Durgold Pure Blue. It comes in a pack of 3 rolls. This is actually like the 72 inch or 71 inch drop. It's a 65 foot per roll. So 3 rolls will pretty much do everything you need to do to a car like this. So let's get spraying the stripes. And alright, got the stripe sprayed. That's 3 coats of base. surprisingly small amounts of material when you spray it through trim gun. I just put on just enough to cover. Didn't want to put too much on. I do have it well ventilated in here. Got a fan in the window. The trim gun don't put off much overspray at all. So our next stage of doing these stripes is where I masked off here for our stencil. It's going to come off. Now, it's only been about 10 minutes, but the base coat is dry. My hands are dyed red from cleaning the paint gun and things, but your stencil is pretty much going to go right in this area. So, if you have a stencil made, make sure that you line your edges up. What you want it centered in this hole. And before you paint your stripe, you need to make sure that you get that 2 1/8 inches in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and move to our stencil. I'm gonna see if I can't get it ready to put on here. I'm gonna give this just a couple more minutes. That way I can adhere the stencil over the top of the base coat. While it's drying, I can touch it. I would like it to cure out just a few more minutes. And what that'll do is prevent it from pulling the base coat up or adhering itself to the base coat and not being able to get it off and rip the paint off. Kind of tricky. I don't want to let the base coat dry too long where it's fully cured out, but also don't want it wet enough that our stencil will adhere to it and not come off. So the stencil part is very careful, easy work. You need to just make sure everything is adhered, you don't have no loose edges. Black coat's just enough to get your color. You had to come check everything and make sure it looks right. Are you happy? So we got our stencil spray. I literally just sprayed 2 quick coats, just enough to get the color to match. Kind of important on stencils, especially using generic stencil material like that. The plastic stuff that's meant for hobby type things. Once you get that wet with paint or reducer, it's going to start to want to unstick itself. So you want to get in there quick. You want to burnish your edges right before you spray it one more time. Go in there, spray it quick, get it off. So I got the stencil sprayed. At this point, I'm going to untape the car. Y'all watch me untape the other side. So I'm going to untape this one, and then I'll be back once I get done taped. Get the car untaped. Some people say stuff about overspraying the wheel wells. I've still got to paint the bottom of the car, and I'll be coming in here with some bed liner and wheel well in the back. The front, we got that splash apron. I've also had a couple of people say something about splash aprons. I didn't put them on when I put fenders on. That's because more than likely this fender's going to have to come back off. But I had to put it back on to get these straps on here. Because there's no way in the world you could tape that up off the car. Same with the straps on the hood, trunk lid, rear valance, back bumper. That's why I put the back bumper on it until I had it taped out, then I took it back off. But sometimes you just gotta trust the process and see what happens in the end. And for whatever reason, this car's been shut up over here today. They're starting flies all over the darn thing. I ain't never seen such. But all our stripes are completed. I'm gonna let that dry over about an hour. I'm gonna take a Scotch-Brite pad and run over this car lightly, just to make sure there's not no overspray or anything on it. And then we'll start taping for clear coat. Sometimes you just gotta trust the process. Wait and see what happens in the end. But I do appreciate feedback down in the comments. Sometimes this stuff happens. And like I said, can't do this stuff without putting it together first, unfortunately. So I think I'm gonna scuff down Scotch-Brite here in about an hour and let that base coat fully 100% cure out on that driver's side. It's dry to the touch now. I just don't know if I want to start scuffing on it quite yet. But I'm gonna start on the passenger side, the hood, roof, trunk, all that stuff. So let's get this thing scuffed down and we'll go from there. Well, it's the next day. I got the car washed back down, rinsed back out, blew back out, get it prepared to clear coat it. So I got to go in here this morning. I got to tape up the underhood area, the front of the core support, the wheels and tires, and we can get ready to start laying some clear coat on it. So first I'll flip it around. Right. So the car's clean. I don't know why we're having such issues with flies in here. Never seen so many in my life. I had to get rid of those before I start, but got the car cleaned up, scuffed back down, got all the base coat up here scuffed. Got everything opened up and drained out, so we're ready to get this thing prepared. So there's another one of them darn pesky things. So got those places in the jams. Like I said before, got them fixed. I got to tape up the strikers and the door latches. But we're ready to go. I got the car all taped up. I'm sure it sounds like a tornado. I got fans running. I got the car prepped. It's taped up. So all I got to do is run over the tack cloth right before I spray, and then we'll be ready. So let's get to mixing some paint, see if we can get the clear on it. Alright, got 2 coats clear down. It's got a little trash in it and a little mess, but looks like it's laying out pretty decent. I'm about ready to spray my last coat of clear on it. And we'll have ourselves an automobile. Well, 4 coats of clear. What I put on the car, sprayed about 60 psi, fan all the way open, you know, later on there. Looks pretty good. So I'll flip the camera around, let y'all tell me what you think down in the comments. So it's still pretty tacky, but it laid out pretty decent. As you can hear by the floor, it's still pretty tacky. That's the only thing about a white car, it's hard to see anything in the shade. Makes it fun to spray clear coat too, but it's got just a touch of orange peel in it, but it might flow on out. But for a garage job, I think it looks pretty decent. Got our bumper sprayed there. Our trunk lid. Roof up there. And get a little run or two on this side. Back here in the quarter panel, I hung a curtain right there. It's kind of shady back here and you can't really see nothing, so that'll wet sand out, but everything else should be pretty slick when we get done. So guys, at this point it's pretty hard to believe it's even the same car. Don't look like the same car. It's actually straight. And, you know, it's not all hacked and cobbled together with whatever we could buy at the local Home Depot or Lowe's or discount store. Surprisingly, the clear laid pretty decently. Didn't seem to have any issues other than a couple runs, and those are my fault. And they'll wet sand out and buff out real easy. I'd rather have too much clear on it than not enough. So guys, it's pretty hard to believe it's even the same car at this point. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. So I'm probably gonna cut this video off about right here because there's not gonna be nothing I can do for a few days. I'm gonna let this cure out good, and then I'm gonna come back and we'll color sand and buff it, and we'll start putting this thing back together. There's tons of stuff to still put in it, considering it's just a bare rolling shell at this point. But at least maybe you can get an idea of what I had in my head, of what I want to look like. And I hope he's real happy with it. I've been sending him pictures along the way, and he watches these videos, so I think it's going to be a real good standout car, especially for cruising car show stuff. So I definitely put in the effort, and it looks like it's going to show. So if you haven't yet, make sure you like this video, share them with your friends. If you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button because it does help the channel to grow. Helps me knock a little bit off this labor bill on this thing. And I know he greatly appreciates that also. And maybe next time I won't have feet that when I walk around the floor sound like somebody's ripping, you know, tape off. If you are a subscriber, guys, thanks for watching. I greatly appreciate y'all. And the ones that signed up as members, I hope you enjoyed those sneak peeks in these other videos. That is something that you can do to help support the channel. I do have memberships. They're down here at the bottom. If you want a hat or a t-shirt or something with Daisy on it, make sure you check out my store down below. And until the next video, guys, I appreciate y'all guys, and I'll see you at the next one.